Hello, party people. My name is Clarence Rick Napier, the insurance broker, licensed in multiple states. Those states include Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Texas, California, and the state of Washington. I'm also the president at 321 Biz Development, located both in Metro Atlanta and San Francisco. Today is June 8th, 2025, and the title of this podcast episode, I'll probably have to think of one when I get to the end, but I want to talk about several things, and a lot of it has to do with when you know your business is about to go boom, and then secondly, when do you want to take action to make your business go boom, to be successful? Now, I'm not a motivational speaker, and I've never claimed to be one. I'm primarily a sales systems trainer and business development specialist. And I got most of my experience working 12 years in corporate America at a Fortune 500 company, serving 4 of those years as a vice president of an insurance company. And I just want to let people know that selling insurance products is the hardest business out there, especially when you're talking about meeting with consumers and taking a person from the 5 front-end sales activities, which are, and you kind of can read those in my slide there. The 5 front-end sales activities are contacting, prospecting, setting appointment, closing, and getting zero-cost referrals. And 321 Biz Development has been in business since November 1st, 2014. That is a day that I will never forget, because that's when I had to change what I was doing and how I was working as a salesperson, because I was seriously failing before November 1st, 2014. Or I should say around 2012 is when I discovered that I sucked as a salesperson. And I was selling insurance, I was selling real estate, and it wasn't until I connected with a guy that had an auto repair shop, and my best friend from Puerto Rico. He was one of the top mechanics, and I met the owner at a networking event in Sacramento. And the owner did not know that I knew one of his workers that was from Puerto Rico, and the worker was Eduardo. So the business owner stood up and said, because of the mortgage crisis, the real estate crisis, just like heavy duty economic downturn, especially in California, that he would have to lay off about half of his staff. So I made an appointment to meet with him. That's when I let him know that Eduardo was a good friend of mine. And, I learned something from him. And what I learned was that even though he had a upscale auto repair shop that did great work, his father owned it, then he inherited it, and he was doing great. What he did not know was business development, and he had no experience with sales systems. And what I mean by that, he had no experience in when people come in to get their cars serviced. He had no experience about what probability would people say, go ahead and get the car fixed, versus, the percentage of people who would say, no, that costs too much. And I know some of you may think that's a very trivial situation where someone says, oh, I'll get back to you, or call me next month, or let me think about it, or let me think about the quote. Many people think that's a trivial conversation. That it just happens. I mean, yeah, but I'm here to tell you here on June 8th, 2025. That is not a trivial situation. These are not trivial events when people say, let me think about it, or I'll call you next week, or get in touch with me next month. There's something that happened that wasn't right. And 321 Biz Development, we have a 6 to 9 hour class that we do via webinar, or we can meet you in person at your office over a 2-day period and train people what a sales system is and how to execute business development. So I'm sitting back this June 8th evening, just preparing for my own business development for, June 9th and then for the rest of the summer. And, I gotta kind of clap for myself because, and I want people to really think about this. If you're listening to this episode and you're hearing what I am saying, I almost guarantee you won't find another company like 321 Biz Development that can do what we say. In other words, and I've had many clients that have experienced this. I had one client that, and this was one was an insurance client, and another was a guy that had a floor tiling or floor renovation business. The guys that come in to the warehouses and they make the floor smooth, or if you have a garage and you want to have that nice floor in your garage that's smooth and slick and there's no scratches, no cracks, and it's got like sealant on it and it looks just great. Well, these two people, especially the floor tiling guy, I was at a coffee shop during the pandemic, and this is one of my most recent clients, but this is the one that's most memorable. I was sitting there chilling, drinking some coffee, and it was Pause Coffee in Orangeville. Yeah, Orangeville. Is that Orangeville? Yeah, it's Orangeville, or it was off of Greenback Avenue. Pause Coffee. You can look it up. They have a website. Great coffee, owned by some Romanians. And I was sitting there chilling, and I had my business card just laying out. I wasn't trying to market to anybody. I'm always doing something, blogs, making phone calls. And this guy saw my card, and he was a Ukrainian guy. And he said, "Hey, I'm looking at your card, and I would like to know, what is a sales system?" He's heard so much about it, but no one has ever explained it to him. And I said, well, a sales system is a predictable way of doing business such that you have a high percentage of closing. And the sales system starts at the contacting phase or stage, then the prospecting stage, and then the setting appointment stage, the closing stage, and getting zero cost referrals. And he said, your explanation that lasted, this is what he told me. He goes, "Clarence, your explanation that you gave in 2 minutes is more than I've been able to find in months. Going to YouTube, going to the social media platforms, going to the big national gurus that try to motivate people into success, which, by the way, does not work." So we talked a little more, and a couple of weeks later, he said, "I would like to take your course." And one of the first things that we talked about in depth was, what do you do if someone calls you and asks you what your price is? And that's the first question they ask. And I said, you don't tell them what your price is if that's the first way you're starting the conversation. And what you need to do is take the conversation to a Q&A type, situation, take it to a question and answering type situation. And he said, why is that? So I explained that to him. This is during our 6 to 9 hour class. We met over a 3-day period, and the coffee shop was pretty mellow, pretty quiet, so I was able to do it there. And he goes, that's the reason why I have not been able to close a lot. Because when someone would call him and ask about his prices, and his prices were between like $2,500 and $4,000 for residential, and then higher for commercial. He said that is the reason why when he gets phone calls from like Facebook or some other type of digital marketing that he had out there, that many people would just say, "Oh, that's too high," and hang up. And so giving your price to someone who calls or who sends you an email, or even someone you meet face to face, and that's their first question, has no bearing on what type of quality service that you're going to deliver. It has no bearing on the experience that you're going to deliver to that person. Yeah, he could have said, "Oh, it's $1,500," and would have been crappy work, and he wouldn't gotten any referrals. I know he wouldn't have sold his service for $1,500 because that would be far below even making a profit for what he did. And he was an epoxy floor specialist. That's what it was. He was epoxy floor specialist. So if you are in the flooring business, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so we talked about that. And so he finished the course over a 3-day period, one-on-one at the coffee shop. And he thanked me because he had learned more in 3 days than he had learned in all of his business life. He had not learned this in college. He had not heard this with some of his colleagues that also did epoxy floors. So that's why I'm saying I want to pat myself on the back. And my message to people in this podcast episode is that you will know what you need to know when you ask the right person. And 321 Biz Development pricing, it's for 6 to 9 hours. I mean, there's a range that we offer, but trust me, that is not the most important thing. If I told you my price was $3,000 or $5,000 or $7,000, individual or group, the point is, once you know what you know, and if you look at things such as there's like cash flow streams. You say, okay, so this is my investment, and how many years will I benefit from the investment? Well, if your items cost $3,000 to $4,000 or higher, or if you are a real estate agent, you're talking commissions. If you have a team of real estate agents, and all of a sudden your productivity and performance, and there's a big difference between performance and productivity. You'll learn that in the class, but your performance, which is, I'll tell you, just give you a little hint. Performance is more so dealing with how active you are in your business, and productivity is more connected with what's your closing ratio. So there's some good definitions. Definitions mean something. So you got to ask yourself, if you can go from a 10% closing ratio to like a 50% closing ratio, or an 80% closing ratio, what is the cash flow in having maybe a one-time expense, or maybe you need some follow-up support, maybe 2 to 3 expenses on the training side, on the business development, coaching side. But now in the first year, you're able to increase your productivity from 10% to 30%, or 30% to 60%, or 80%. and your products and services cost at least $1,000. And I'm just letting you know, the information that I'm talking about tonight is what I use. So tomorrow when I pick up the phone and, I'm calling CPAs, I'm calling estate planning attorneys, I'm calling dentists, I'm calling other blue collar business owners who sell big ticket items starting at $1,000 and higher. I'm using my own information. I'm using my own information that I'm providing to people who want to improve their business, who want to improve their closing ratios, who want to improve how many people they contact per week or per month. So yeah, it's that serious. It's that serious to say, okay, well, my week, let's say I'm talking to you and you tell me that your products and services or the commission is $2,000 to $3,000, or maybe if you're in real estate or mortgage loans, it's $12,000, $20,000. Well, how many people did you contact this week or last week? Oh, maybe you contacted 2. I mean, really contacted them. I'm not really talking about social media. Sales systems and business development is not connected with social media. So I hope I didn't lose any people. It's not. It's really the traditional contacting and prospecting. And we talk about why that is much more powerful than anything dealing with digital media or digital marketing or even AI. I know AI right now is the buzz in the business community, but AI cannot touch traditional sales system training and business development. In fact, I'm calling people tomorrow in several states: Washington State, Pennsylvania, Florida, Georgia. My business partners and I, we have a magazine publishing company that has advertising opportunities. On Tuesday, I'm training a young lady originally from Cleveland who lived in Seattle. And she came up to me and she goes, "Clarence, I need to make some money, but I'm so afraid to be in business. I'm so afraid of, asking people questions. I'm so afraid of asking people for money." And that right there, my folks, is another obstacle that people have. You would be surprised how many people are afraid to ask for the business, to ask for the check. And it's understandable why people are like that. And the reason why is because there was not much put in front of asking for the check. I mean, the activity, the effort, the psychology that comes with asking for the check must precede asking for the check, if that makes sense. So we talk about that at 321 Biz Development, Sales Systems and Business Development Training. And I just want to add, people say, "Well, Clarence, if you are an insurance broker, why are you helping people with sales systems and business development?" Well, I can tell you right now, as a former corporate executive who used to sell employee benefits at the corporate level, and we sold to companies that had 50 employees, 5,000 employees. My biggest client in Ventura County had 12,000 employees. But let's not talk about the big clients. Let's talk about the small business owners that have maybe 20, 30, 40 employees, maybe 60. It's one of those things where that's where the majority of business is generated in America, the small business owner. And as an insurance broker, I could not, let me say this, as a corporate executive, I could not help business owners with sales and marketing or business development or sales system training because I couldn't do that. That wasn't my job. And at that time, I didn't even know how to do it. Most of the information I'm sharing tonight from 321 Biz Development comes from working as an independent contractor. And you know why? You cannot You cannot, there's no big banner, there's no big brand marketing that you have when you're an independent contractor. When you are a independent insurance agent, independent real estate agent, you have a CPA firm with 3 to 5 people, or maybe you are solo, or you're a private practice dentist, and you just have your name, your last name, dentistry, amongst 4,000 to 5,000 other dentists in the metropolitan area. So that's the reason why, as an insurance broker, I can now help small business owners with their health insurance, employee benefit needs, the supplemental services like AFLAC. I can help them with retirement planning for the executives, for the high income earners. But you see, for businesses to continue to stay in business and continuously deal with the rising cost of healthcare, they also need to have their businesses growing. And that's why I can say that I'm one of the few people that can help, because I understand the challenge. I truly do. And lastly, people ask me, I get this question occasionally. People ask me, they say, well, why do you have a little bit of music in the background in your podcast episodes? And I'll tell you why. When I started 321 Biz Development in 2014, about 18 months later, these guys from Texas, I think I was following them on a social media platform, and we just start trading, like, hey, how's it going? Great. So what they wanted to do was train real estate agents in California. And they were savvy enough to get an appointment with the California Association of Realtors, which has, they have like 200,000 realtors back then. I'm not sure if that number is as high today as it was back in 2015, 2016. But I had not provided all the 321 sales system and business development information on my episodes. I only gave snippets. So they tried to copy it, and it all fell apart because they didn't have some critical sales system, training information. So they got to a certain point, and the realtors that had paid, it wasn't a lot of money they were charging, but the realtors that had paid, they were like, where's the rest of it? What do we do next? And they could not answer the question. They started making up stuff, and the whole thing fell apart. In fact, I knew it was mine because I was a realtor at the time, and I got the email from the California Association of Realtors if I wanted to check out the preview. And I was listening to it, and I said, wait a minute, that's my stuff. And then I heard the guys' names, and then I heard they were from Texas. And I said, that's my material. But then I sat back and said, they don't have it all. So, in closing, the insurance broker. Make sure you connect with an insurance broker in your local neighborhood, because they have to call people. They have to connect with people on a non-digital marketing way, because our industry is tough. So what that means is that if you connect with an insurance broker in your local community and they are working, or you connect with me, Clarence Napier, I am working, it is more likely that I can help you find more prospects for your business. So I want to thank you for listening to this episode. This is one of a episode that I typically don't do long ones, but I just had to do this one. My contact information is 866-901-9876. My website address is insforsure.com. And I also have another website, the 321 Biz Dev site. It's kind of under construction for the next couple of days, but the insforsure.com website will definitely have enough information. I'm also on YouTube under 321 Sales Gods, and I think you might be able to find me on Instagram too. But the reason why I'm on Instagram is not so much. I've had very little business from social media, but I like to see what other people are posting. So I post some things, doesn't take me a lot of time. It's never really delivered much by itself, but I've been able to contact a lot of people on Instagram via phone, or if they're local, face to face. So there's another thing that you can do with social media. You don't necessarily have to get business from it. You can find people that are very cool and maybe they have some interest in your product, but you got to call them or you got to meet them face to face if they're local. So anyway, Clarence Napier, the insurance broker, 321 Biz Development, the sales system trainer, business development specialist. Take care and have a fantastic week. Bye-bye.